You're listening to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses. Each week, you'll hear my thought-provoking conversations with Olympians, pro athletes, CEOs, elite coaches, best-selling authors, and other high performers to uncover their secrets to success. Get ready to be inspired each week when we talk about leadership, teamwork, work ethic, and more. Are you ready? Let's go. This week, my guest is University of Utah head women's basketball coach Lynne Roberts. Last season, Lynne was named Pac-12 Coach of the Year after leading the Utes to 27 wins and the team's first NCAA Tournament Sweet 16 appearance since 2006. As you'll hear in our conversation, Lynne loves building things from the ground up. She took over a struggling Utah program back in 2015 and has since engineered a remarkable turnaround. We recently sat down to explore all of the mindsets, tools, and leadership philosophies powering Lynne's career. She shared so many actionable ideas and concepts on building something from the ground up, the power of setting incremental goals, how to effectively communicate feedback, and so much more. Lynne also shared a powerful message that I think will help all of us learn to increase our gratitude and appreciation, no matter where we are in our journeys. This conversation was a ton of fun. I hope you enjoy it and take a lot from it like I did. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Lynne Roberts. Where I want to begin, you've had some great seasons at Utah, but this past one, you won 27 games, made it to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2006, and had the team ranked as high as number 3 in the country. When you step back and reflect on this past season, were there specific factors that you can point to that really made a difference in taking things to the next level this year?
Well, I think any coach that when you win big, you have to point to the players and the talent that you have. But I think, this was my 8th year here at Utah, and I took over a program that hadn't done anything in the Pac-12. We joined the Pac-12 12 or 13 years ago. And, there was 12 schools when I joined, and I think we were in the women's basketball, we were like 18th in terms of how talented and where the program was at. And so it's taken time, but this is the 3rd program I've taken over, and all 3 were kind of struggling. Not kind of, they were struggling. And so this is something I just love doing, is building and doing things that people say you can't do. What's the secret sauce to that? And it comes down to people. Life comes down to the people you surround yourself with. I've certainly made my share of mistakes in recruiting and all those things. But as my grandfather used to say, and if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. And so I've learned to recruit the kids that do well with me as their coach and at the University of Utah and the other places I've been. So it comes down to the people. And I'm just blessed and fortunate enough to have this beautiful office and be the head coach, but it's a whole team.
It's a beautiful office. We were talking about it before we started recording. Coach, I'm curious, there's so much that you shared there that I want to double click into. The first is just that this nature that you have of being a builder, of taking over things that maybe haven't reached their full potential and making them better. You mentioned you've done it at essentially all the coaching stops that you've had. Where do you think that comes from for you as a person? Like, is that something that's always been inside of you, a builder?
Yeah, I think, and I love to prove people wrong. I have older brothers. I was always the kid's sister. We'd play football in the street and all the neighborhood boys, and I was just the all-time center. I never got a real job, all-time catcher when we played baseball. Like, I just was the token little sister. And so I've always had a chip on my shoulder in that way. Nothing gets me going more than just kind of being pat on the head, like, oh, that's cute. You think you can do that at Utah? Oh, that's good for you. Nothing motivates me more. I don't know. It's kind of a sick and twisted characteristic trait, but it's served me well. And I do love doing things. I think I'm very blue collar, and that's why I was interested in doing this podcast. I think that's kind of what, you've learned through talking with people too, and kind of your own. I think you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And I love that. I don't have a huge ego. I really don't. I don't do this for the money or the fame or anything like that. I do it because I love proving people wrong.
Love that, Coach. And like you said, this is a podcast where we talk about blue collar and being willing to do the work and stepping up and doing whatever it takes, regardless of what your title or, how many years of experience you have or where you are in an organization or a team. And I'm curious, just to go back to that point, where do you think that comes from? Like for you, was it something that was just instilled in you by others? Was it something that somebody else modeled for you that you've taken with you? Where do you think that work ethic and just willingness to dive in and help, as I say, pull the tarp?
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Well, I think, and I love that, the analogy of pulling the tarp and that, you got to get the job done. I think, there's two things. One, how I was raised. My dad was a strawberry farmer. And so, we had everything we needed, but we weren't rolling in money. And so, I had jobs growing up and that was just expected. And there's a premium in our family of just work ethic, and not because you're going to get a prize if you do it, but because it's what you're supposed to do. Like, it's just how it's supposed to be. Everything that I've achieved or been given, I feel like I've earned. Like, it has not at any step been easy. My playing career was at Division II, and it was incredible, and I loved it, and I wouldn't change anything of it. And that's where I started as an assistant. And then I was a Division II head coach for 4 years before jumping to Division I. But at that level, the competitiveness is the same. The wins are still as fun, but you have to do everything. So I learned how to tape ankles and wash uniforms and drive the bus and all those things, get the food, make meals. And so you just kind of learn how to do those things, but also it makes you appreciate those that when you get to the Pac-12 and you have more resources and more people helping you than you even kind of know how to manage, you appreciate those people so much more. And the value that they bring, they make my life so much easier. And so I think it's just kind of how I was raised in terms of you work because that's what you're supposed to do. And if you want something, then go earn it. Like, go do it. Don't complain about why you don't have it. Then go get it. And if you don't go get it, then I don't want to hear you complain. It's kind of like if you want a car as a high school kid, I had to earn money to get a car. Like, well, if you don't want a car that bad, then don't get a job. Like, that kind of thing. If you want to be a head coach in the Pac-12, then go earn it. Go do it. And I think that's just kind of been my whole path.
Shrewsbury, who was at Penn State when I interviewed him and has now gone on to Notre Dame, he told a really similar story, Coach, about doing the team's laundry and taping ankles and being like the student advisor or the academic advisor. And he said the same thing. When you get to a place like Penn State that's bigger, or Notre Dame, and you have these resources, you have this appreciation like you described, and you also have a better understanding of all the resources and things that you need to kind of make the whole thing sing. So I think it really similar concept to what Coach Shrewsbury shared as well. I'm curious, you talked about having jobs and earning money. When you think back, was there a job before basketball? Was there a job that just stands out in your memory as having an impact on you in terms of shaping the way you go about your business?
Well, I always tell all my players, like, at some point in your life, you need to work in service industry. I was a lifeguard in high school some of the time because I figured out, well, if I got that's an easier gig than harder work. But I was a waitress. And I think in terms of doing something where the customer's always right, and you kind of have to learn how to just grin and bear it and work your tail off, and they may not leave you a tip at the end of the day. Like, you have to deal with it. Like, I think at some point, everybody should have a service industry job. I also, in college, worked at a grocery store. I was a bagger, and that job was eye-opening, just kind of Americana of how it all works. And, clean up on aisle 3 where somebody used the restroom. Like, you have to go, clean up where someone went to the bathroom on aisle 3. It's like, it's humbling, but it's what makes the world go round. And it makes you appreciative when you get a job where you don't have to do those things. But those are valuable people and good people that work those jobs too. So it's just created an appreciation for me.
Absolutely. We keep coming back to the concept of appreciation. I think that's so important. Moving back to basketball and the concept of building, like we talked about at the outset of the conversation, you've taken over programs that were going through some challenges and you've turned things around and moved to trajectory up, right? You could say in these circumstances. How do you go about doing that from like a prioritization standpoint? Like, how do you get your arms around all the issues, for lack of better terms, or opportunities, and figure out like what you're going to emphasize to get things going in the right direction? I think this applies to sport, to business, to anything, right? Like if you're a principal of a school and the school's not doing great and you've got to kind of change the tide, like how do you get things prioritized and figure out what to emphasize?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a big question. I think in the coaching world, you take over this job, I thought, we can win a Pac-12 championship here. We can. We absolutely can. We have the resources. We've got the facilities. We've got the city. We're in the best league for women's basketball in the country. There's all these things. Hasn't been done yet, but you can't say that first year, we're going to win it, right? Like you have to, and I say it all the time, and I know it's cliche, but you have to trust the process. And so you have an end goal, but if you just focus only on the end goal, you're going to end up banging your head against the wall because you're not going to achieve it right away. So you kind of have to, what I believe in firmly is kind of having a vision for each year that's kind of incremental. So this year, you take over something that's broken, there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit. And you can do that. But I think the first couple years, and again, this is business, whatever, school, like this is how we are going to operate. And the outcome is going to be what it is. We may lose more than we win. We may, not make money the first year, but this is how we're going to operate. This is how we're going to work. This is how we're going to treat each other. This is how we're going to dress. This is and then you just focus on like really kind of your foundation of this is who we're going to be. And the reality is that the outcome isn't probably going to be great, but you're setting the tone for what it's going to look like. And then in year 2, okay, we know how we act, and I'm going to hold everybody accountable to that, and myself included. And then we might be able to get, we're going to work our tails off in recruiting, or if you're, own a business, we're going to hire some managers that are just going to kick butt. But we're going to get the right people. Jim Collins has that great book, The Good to Great. You get the right people on the bus and the right seats, and that's when great things start happening. So we want to get the right people in, whether that's staff, players, whatever. And then you just keep building. Okay, this year, we wanted to go 500. We did. Okay, next year we want to make postseason. Okay, now what? And you just keep building it with that foundation of this is how we operate. This is how it is. And that's not to say it's easy or you don't fall on your face or you don't fail. Like you're going to do all those things. And you're going to take criticism and people will second guess what you're doing. But you have to trust the process and trust your vision.
I'm curious, Coach, in terms of the input from others and perspectives from stakeholders in sports, in college sports, and in this social media era, there are no shortage of opinions.
It's true.
Everybody thinks they know how to do your job, and maybe there's people out there who often think they could do a coach's job better, even though we know that's not the case. I heard something really interesting from App State men's basketball coach Dustin Kearns. He said to me, I have to take all the input, but I have to figure out what to do with it because, if I do everything that everybody in the stands tells me to, I'm going to be sitting with them. Yeah. And I'm curious, how do you think about that? How do you make sure you get enough information and input into the program from all of its stakeholders, but ultimately the buck stops with you as the leader?
Yeah. Well, I think I've learned, this will be my 22nd year as a head coach. I was 25 when I got my first head job, which is very young. I thought I knew what I was doing. I just winged it and figured it out as I went. So I've learned a lot through the years just by swimming in the deep end. And I've learned and I genuinely don't care what people think unless they're in the tent. Like if it's my boss that knows what we're dealing with and they have an opinion on, hey, this, then I'm going to listen. If it's a player, who's in our tent, who's there every day, who knows what we're dealing with, who knows the different personalities. You can watch a team on TV and you don't know anything that's going on in the locker room and they could win by 50 and it could be a miserable experience. Like you just don't know. And so I have learned, and it's genuine, like I really don't care. I respect everybody and I'm not going to tell someone to their face, go shove it. But I'll smile and nod and it will literally just Teflon. Like I just don't absorb it. I've learned to just not. But I also have a whole bunch of humility to know that I am not a finished product. I am not perfect. I have not arrived. Like I'm constantly wanting to get better. I have other coaches that I trust that I'll call and say like, I think I screwed up here. What do you think? Yeah, you did, Roberts. Like that was not good. And then, so I have definitely confidence in what I'm doing, but a lot of humility to continue to learn. But if you're not in my tent, it's great that you care and you have an opinion, but it's not going to affect me, and I'll sleep just fine.
I'm curious, Coach, like how do you as a leader and a coach create enough structure for your players, whether it's from like a programmatic perspective, or it's even in the game planning and the way you go about designing the game plan? Like, how do you create enough structure and guardrails, but give the players enough space to create themselves, whether it's from a cultural perspective in the locker room or it's on the floor?
Yeah, I love that question. I think that's a great question. I think that's the science. That's the beauty of coaching. Like, that's the fun part. And I love that part, because you've got, in our case, 13 young women that are all very different. They're motivated very differently. They're pissed off very differently. And that's the fun stuff. But I think basketball to me is a player's game. Football is a coach's game where the guy's up in the booth and every guy knows what angle he's blocking, and everything has to be, all 11 guys have to be running in the exact same space. Basketball, there's so much reading and reacting. So I feel like the less that I do in a game, the better we play. So I don't want to have a ton of control. And that's kind of how we do things off the court too. But if, we recruit good kids, I've learned the hard way. We don't recruit knuckleheads. We don't have any in our program. So I don't have to worry about a lot of the riffraff that other programs have to deal with. So we recruit good kids. And I think even more so today than maybe 15 years ago, kids are going to be who they are. Like, I think you've got to give them, bumper rails is a good way to say it. They got to be able to sway left and right to themselves, but you got to give them room to do it. I think if you put strict, and this I think is evolving, but you put strict regulations on a team, on a player, and they're going to buck, right? And that's when then you got people going in different directions. But we only have 3 team rules in our program: be on time, be respectful, and no drama. That's it. And that really encompasses everything. We don't have a handbook. We don't have, this is how you do this. Our players know how we conduct ourselves, how we carry ourselves, and just be on time, be respectful, and no drama. And I don't have to enforce a whole lot with those 3 rules.
I've also heard, Coach, first off, I love the 3 rules. It's so simple, simple, but not easy, right? Simple, but not easy. And I think a lot of success secrets in any discipline or any walk of life boil down to these things that are simple, but not easy.
Right.
And I love those 3. I'm curious, when you think about, like, those are the pillars that are going to really drive kind of the culture of your program and the way people behave and operate. So much of basketball, I believe, is the creating good decision makers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about, like, balancing the desire that a player has to be selfless and pass the ball, and like the need for players to actually have to shoot the ball, right? Like, I feel like when you're building like the ultimate collaboration environment, there's this, if you do it right, you create this desire to be selfless, but you also need a bunch of players who are willing to take the ball and put it in the basket.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I think you have to ultimately make it about winning, make it about the team. We always say we over me, and either you're all in or you're in the way. It has to be about winning. And so you reinforce that, and not necessarily we have to win the game, but we celebrate things in practice. Like we're celebrating any sort of victory, whether it's shooting free throws or whatever, like we're celebrating all that. So it becomes about that. But I think, again, just like selfishness is contagious, so is unselfishness. So if in our system, there's a ton of freedom, we score a lot of points, we average 90 points a game, like there's a lot of points happening, and it's because we're unselfish. But if I have a good shot and I see that you have a great one and I give it up to you so you can shoot the great one, then the next time down, you're going to do the same to me. The opposite's true too. If I see you, but I'm like, I'm going to get mine, and I shoot it, well, then the next time down, you're going to get yours. And then it just snowballs one way or the other. So we've just but the unselfish play breeds more success, and success equals winning. And that's way more fun than losing and getting yours. And so we've created a culture with that. And it takes a lot of time and commitment to it and staying consistent, but it's a pretty simple game. Beat your man and try to score. And if somebody rotates over, then pass it. Like, that's basketball.
I feel like there are so many parallels to obviously other sports, but to business or anything. Again, we keep coming back to all these things that there's so many parallels. But you talked a minute ago about the decision between, like, if you get a good shot versus a great shot, you get a good look, a bad look. When people have to make really quick decisions, I feel like there's some art and there's some science to that. How do you help people improve their decision making?
Well, film. And, we do things very unique here all through it. Like everything we do is just a little bit different. But, we watch film. We only watch film on Mondays. And do you remember the old Western movie, Good, Bad, and the Ugly?
Yes. Yes.
We watch a film. It's like 15 minutes of clips from practicing games called The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And so we'll highlight things that we're doing as a team. So rather than watch a game and clip and then, oh, we did this and oh, we did that, we'll watch like, okay, here are 2 or 3 themes that we're really doing good. We're doing these things well. So we'll watch, maybe we're making the extra pass really well. So we'll watch 8, 10, 12 clips of us making the extra pass. And so it's different players doing it, right? And we walk through it and teach it and all that. And then, then like, here's our help side defense look. It's good. Show it over and over. And then we watch the bad, which is, here's where we're not making the extra pass, or here's where we got to get better at this or that. Here's where our defense is, so we'll watch thematically kind of the clips. And then it goes to ugly, which is really funny. So, I'm sure you've been a part of teams. Like, there's always funny stuff. That's the good stuff that you remember, the things that when someone tripped in the locker room or whatever on the line in practice, or someone throws a pass and it hits someone off the side of the head, like all the things. Well, it's all captured on film these days, right? So we'll do there'll be like 5 or 6 funny clips that we'll end with. So what happens though is that everyone walks out of the film room laughing because we're just watching all the dumb stuff we did all week. But it's just a way to reinforce the good. Here's what we're doing good. Keep doing that. The bad, here's what we got to get better at as a group, not you suck. You got to be better. Jenny, you keep doing this. Jenny's going to see herself do it anyway. And then we end with the funny. So it has worked pretty well for us.
Very cool. And I've heard, and maybe you can confirm this, that you don't like meet with the team after a game, win or loss. And I feel like from a coaching perspective, that's probably somewhat unique.
Yeah. I don't know anyone else who doesn't do it, but I have learned games are emotional. So whether you win or lose, you're emotional. And I learned over the years that when you win, it's fine, but the kids don't need you to come in there and tell them great job or we won. Like they already know, they're already feeling good. If we have a huge win, then I'll come in the locker room. But other than that, I never do. But more often than not, you have a tough loss and the kids already feel crappy that they lost. I'm already feeling crappy that I lost. So the emotions are so high and you go in and let's say we lost the game on a putback because from what I saw, you didn't block out your man and it was an offensive board putback and we lose. So I come in the locker room and I'm like, dude, one block out. All you had to do was block it out. One time we win that game and you already feel awful because you were out there and we lost. Then I go back and watch the film and I notice that, oh, you did block out. It was somebody else, but I can't take back what I said. And I've only made things way worse. And so I have found, and it's profoundly impactful, to just let the emotions come down. It's just like when you're fighting with whoever you're dating or married to, like, let's not continue to hash this out while we're both still heated. Like, let's let the emotions come down and then we can be way more objective. So it gives the coaches the time to watch the film, come down from the high or the loss, and it gives the players a chance to do so too. So then we'll meet the next morning. We practice in the mornings, like at 9. And what's the coolest part is how reflecting the players are on themselves and critical. So we might win by 30 and they'd be like, we turned it over too much, or we didn't rebound as well as we could have. Or we lose and they're like, we passed the ball pretty well, or we did this pretty well. It's like, yeah. So, you take the emotion out of it. And I have found it to be the players get way more out of it. And the games are over and we have all the fans come down on the floor and it's a fun time. And like, games should be fun and not have that dread. I remember as a college player, that dread when your coach is coming in, like, oh boy, we're about to get it, when you already feel crappy. So that's kind of the genesis of that.
I think that in between like the end of the game and the practice the next day, like, are the players communicating with one another, you think, about what went well and what could have gone better? Or is it more like individual self-reflection, you think?
Yeah, I think it's both. And, I have a conversation with them at the beginning of the season, like, hey, we don't meet after games. Here's why. So I'm not going to come in and talk to you. I don't need you guys to fill my shoes. I don't need you guys to be coach in the locker room because there's no coach in the locker room. So you guys can deal with the win or the loss however you want to, but just keep it surface level. Let's not get into pointing fingers or whatever. Why didn't I play more or any of that stuff? Because that's what coaches do. So let's all talk about it as a group the next day. So you just kind of empower them that way, and it's been effective.
It's certainly interesting and unique. And when I had heard that about you, and I knew I had to ask you more about it. And now you've given me so much good education on it. It's fascinating. And like you said, I think this is something that you can apply. Again, we talk about all these things that kind of apply all to these different aspects of life, relationships, like you said, whether it be a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend or a friend or a family member, a business partner, right? I mean, let the emotion subside and then figure out what you want to talk about. And after you've had a chance to let it marinate and process a bit, it's really, really powerful.
And have a chance to kind of look at things and like really take your emotions out of it and evaluate, because you're going to be way more self-aware at that point too.
I've also got to believe that the players are not like there's so much going on at the end of a game, right? Like they're exhausted. There's the emotion that you just talked about the past few minutes. There's other things to do, whether it be media or family or friends. Like,
right.
Even if you tried to coach and educate in that moment, like I just can't imagine that much is like settling in.
No. And that's the thing. Like I looked back and I probably, for, 12 years met after games. And I thought, I can't think of one locker room post game where I achieved anything valuable or memorable, and sometimes coaches just want to let off steam, which is great. If you want to do that, that's great. That's not my style. I don't think it serves a purpose other than you might feel better. But the players hate losing as much as I do. It means something different to them because they're not trying to pay their mortgage and all that. They don't feel that, but they care just as much. They just care differently. So I don't need to rub their noses in it if we have a bad game. They already, if you recruit kids that are winners and they care about winning, they don't need their noses rubbed in it.
You referred there to, just like the evolution of you as a coach over all these years. I'm curious, as we start to kind of wrap up our conversation, is there one thing that you worried about so much at the beginning of your coaching career that you kind of laugh about now and you say, I just wish I hadn't worried about that, or that just wasn't that big of a deal?
Oh, boy. Probably. I'm sure there's a long list. I think the one thing that I have done that I am grateful I did was I made the big time wherever I was at. And that would be my advice to coaches. Like everybody has this, I got to climb. I want to be at the top. And when I was a Division II head coach, those huge wins that we had, the league championship wins, those don't feel any quote unquote less than it was when we beat Stanford and won the Pac-12. Like it's the same feeling. The stage is different. The stakes are more, there's more money and everything. And there's more people in the stands and TV and all that. But the actual pure part of being a competitor, it's the exact same. And if young coaches or coaches as you're getting into it, like just make the big time where you are. Just make it where you're at. Because if you do a good enough job, those opportunities will come. And if not, you're in a situation where you're loving what you're doing. Like I have been able to do that for whatever reason. And I'm so grateful I did, because I wasn't always looking like, oh, if I could just go there, I'm worried about what's my next job. Like be where your feet are and pour into it and make it. If you want to be a big time coach, then make that job a big time job. Like you control the narrative in your own head as to how important it is. And so I do think that's important. And I tell young coaches that anytime I can, like just dive in. It's like people that want to be famous, like they're trying to achieve to be famous. Why don't you try to be great at something that brings you fame? Otherwise, it's, what are you doing? Be excellent at something, be new, be creative, be a difference maker, be authentic. And if people take notice, then that's just icing on the cake.
Make the big time where you are. What a powerful lesson, Coach.
Thank you. Yeah, it has served me well. And now that I'm a Pac-12 head coach and all that, I still feel the same way I did when I was a 25-year-old head coach at Chico State University. Like it doesn't feel different.
I think it's so important, again, anybody out there listening to, like you said, be where your feet are, make wherever you are the big time. And the stakes are high no matter what you're doing, because whatever you're doing matters to somebody.
Right. And if it matters to you and you care passionately about it, then who cares what other people think? Or assistants getting asked, when are you going to be a head coach? Well, maybe I'm happy being an assistant. Like, this is what I want to be doing. Or when are you going to move up to the Power 5? I love where I'm at. And if it works out and it makes sense, I'll do it. But otherwise, don't be pressured because of ego or what other people think. And yeah, I think it's a skill.
It's a skill and it's an important mindset, making wherever you are the big time. Yeah. Coach Roberts, this has been so much fun. I've learned a ton. We'll have to do a part 2 sometime and catch up on everything in your career and the University of Utah women's basketball. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. There is no question you are a tarp puller, forever a member of the Everybody Pulls the Tarp community. Thank you, Coach Roberts.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew H. Moses. That's Andrew H. Moses. And be sure to sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Today is a great day to pull the tarp. I am rooting for you. See you next time.